Good morning and welcome, and I declare the special meeting Wednesday the 4th of February 2026 for Scenic Regional Council now open. I believe we have a full attendance today and there are no apologies. There are no In the absence with the CEO on holidays, we have Acting CEO Leo Jensen at the helm of council. Thank you, Leo. And I believe there are no declaration of interest by members. And I will now move to the consideration of business item 5.1. Councillor McInnes.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I'd like to introduce 5.1, Gallery Walk Project Update, Delivery Change and Budget Increase. Just a bit of background. The Gallery Walk Stage 1 off-street car parking project has experienced cost and schedule impacts arising from unforeseen resource constraints, prolonged wet weather, procurement changes and challenging market conditions. These factors have resulted in a revised forecast cost of $6 million, requiring a budget increase of $1.6 million. Council approval is sought to reallocate funding to ensure project continuing and delivery in line with community and strategic objectives. I'll move to the recommendation, and that is that Council endorse the reallocation of $1.6 million to accommodate additional costs associated with the delivery of the Gallery Walk Stage 1 off-street car parking project, funded from general revenue through the Q2 budget review 2025 to 2026. I so move, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Seconder to the motion.
Has to be me.
Councillor Sanders. I think I will call upon the officer through the CEO to provide some detail to the members, but also to the public in terms of just giving a fuller, comprehensive understanding of that variation, and particularly around budget impact, and also how that actually works in terms of what that actually means to the motion, but what has to come before council at a later date in terms of that budget impact.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll ask the Director of Infrastructure Services, Director Rapre, to provide a response to the council.
Thank you, Acting CEO. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, members of the public in the gallery, the project in question commenced initially in early planning stages in June of 2024, at which time a funding application was submitted to the tune of $4,200,000. A detailed cost estimate was undertaken at that time by a third-party consultant as required by the funding agreement. As the project then progressed into November of 2024, the funding application was approved to the value of $4,200,000. A project delivery model was developed for the car park and associated roadworks that at that time were to be delivered by our internal council crews. In February of 2025, the project then commenced, which included site establishment and associated works. March of 2025, the works continued and were impacted by the ex-tropical cyclone Alfred effects on the LGA. Due to those effects and other impacts on site, in April of 2025, through the quarterly budget review, a revised project budget of $4.4 million was adopted, which effectively utilised the contingency plus an additional $200,000 allocated to the project. At that time, staff undertook market testing to truth check the original project values and ensure that the new project estimates aligned with the revised budget at that time. From April 2025 onwards, a revised delivery model was implemented with the notion of an external contractor needing to come on board to effectively undertake works that were not able to be undertaken by internal council crews. Tender documentation was then prepared, which went to market in September of 2025. Tender responses were then received by council in the last week of December 2025. And in the first week upon recommencing the opening of council post the Christmas and New Year break, it was identified that an additional $1.6 million was required to complete the original scope of works. That gives a rundown of the timeline that is before you. In terms of the motion that is in front of council, this is an endorsement for reallocation of $1.6 million from the budget to effectively allocate the required amounts that have been truth tested through market responses to complete the project within the current expected timeline, which is May-June of this year. The motion in front of you does not automatically reallocate any money from the budget. That is required to be undertaken through a formal quarterly budget review process, and I might ask my peer, the Director of Community and Corporate Services, if he would like to comment on that any further.
Thank you, James. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, in terms of the budget and how it is managed as we move forward, there have been identified a number of options that are available to fund the additional $1.6 million. As the Director of Infrastructure has reported, what could occur is a reallocation and prioritisation of existing projects in the 25-26 capital works budget. That budget at the moment is essentially tracking a little under. That was reported to council in the December financial information, but it will come forward in budget review 2 that is proposed to come to council at the end of February. Second option, there is an unallocated and unspent loan that exists out there. Some of those funds could be drawn from that. That is not ideal, but it is an option. And the third option is that we use general revenue, general cash, take that from the bank to fund the additional works over and above what was originally budgeted. Option 1, in terms of the reprioritisation and reallocation, would be preferred at this point in time, but council does have the other 2 options available to it. Essentially, as I've explained to council over a period of weeks or so now, when council adopts the budget, they are actually adopting a 3-year rolling budget. So when I talk about the reallocation or reprioritisation, what that would mean is that projects that may have been scheduled for this year would be deferred either into year 2 for 26-27 or year 3 27-28 for those works to be finalised. Those works don't just drop off. And again, council at its budget reviews adopts a 10-year forecast. So where projects push out, they simply get pushed through into the forward financial years so that they're not lost, but they're then allocated within those financial years. They're essentially the funding options that we have available to us at this point in time. I did want to clarify over and above what the Director of Infrastructure said that no funds are reallocated from the motion that is in front of council today. They will form part of the comprehensive motions that come forward for the adoption of Budget Review 2, which is scheduled to come to the ordinary meeting in February 2026. Mayor, I'm happy to take any questions or clarifications council may have on what I just said.
Thank you. Councillor Sanders.
I just would like to have a quick discussion on what is unspent and what's left to go. We haven't overspent at this moment in time. Just interested on what we've got left at the moment.
Just, Councillor Sanders, you're referring to figures that are in a confidential attachment. So if we could hold that question over for discussion matters that are that can be put forward in the public arena. Questions from the members? Councillor Moriarty.
Thank you, Chair. My question just relates to the comments made by the two directors. Just seeking clarification that a cost blowout of this nature will not or will impact general rates moving forward this year or in future budgets.
Through you, Mr Mayor, councillors, as has been expressed, the reallocation or reprioritisation of funding will be the first option that officers will be bringing to councillors. So it is not the position of officers that we are coming to ask for an increase in revenue to cover the shortfall, but rather a reprioritisation of existing budget allocations to cover the $1.6 million required.
Councillor.
Thank you, Director. Sorry,
Mr Mayor, I might just make a comment as well to perhaps more completely answer your question, Councillor Moriarty. So, in the first instance, what the Director of Infrastructure said is correct. If we choose to reallocate or reprioritise from within the existing program, that doesn't have an impact on the current financial year, but it does push work into next financial year that at this point in time is not necessarily funded as such. So, for want of a better analogy, it does kick the can down the road a little bit. So the direct question is, if you choose to fund that and not change priorities of the program, it does have a direct impact on the budget in that we are spending more of our cash or more of an unspent loan allocation than what we intended to in the original budget. That is not necessarily what would come forward in a proposed recommendation in Budget Review 2, and that will be discussed with Council beforehand. If you do choose to take the path to reallocate unspent or unallocated funds from the 25-26 budget, then essentially there's no impact in the current budget, but it does raise the question that in the setting of the budget for 26-27 and beyond, Council will need to identify where that additional funding may come from, which again, it's probably going to come from similar funding sources. It either comes from rates that are raised during that financial year, it comes from cash at bank, or it comes from, in some instances, an external loan, but at this point, the loan that's been allocated, the loan that's been taken, identified, but unspent at this point in time. Is that clear?
yes, thank you, Director. It is clear. I guess the reason for the question was in last week's ordinary meeting, my councillor colleague, Councillor Sanders, gave a very fervent speech with regard to impacts of adding roads and completing capital works and so on and so forth, the direct impact on rates and rate percentages increases needed to cover those. So I just wanted to clarify that there are in fact other, mechanisms in place that are not going to directly say, we're not going to add this 1.6 million straight on to next year's budget and that's going to be a direct rate increase to the ratepayers. Just wanted to clarify that matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to clarify, if we look at the Director's three preferred options, and the preferred one was reallocation and reprioritisation of existing capital projects that are in this current financial year and extend for 3 years, as you've said. My concern is which projects are we going to detrimentally impact or push out to a future year to save this one, basically. So there's obviously going to have to be in-depth discussions about that, but my concern is we went through a fairly rigorous budget process to get to the point where we have specific things that we've identified that we wanted carried out this year and in the future 2 years as well. And now it looks like from these circumstances, we're likely to have to reprioritise and push some of those projects out. And I don't find that an acceptable option. Thank you.
Was that a question or something? Sorry. Okay, I've got a question.
Councillor Sanders?
I understand these sort of things do happen. It's never a good thing, and it feels very uncomfortable because we as councillors always have to answer to these things. So I totally understand where everyone's coming from. My concern is that at this moment in time, we've got a 3/4 finished car park. Do we continue on with it, or do we leave it as it is? I guess my question to the officers through the chair is, are we at a stage where we could actually leave it as is without funding any further funds to this?
Through the CEO.
Yeah, just like ask the acting manager to.
Through the chair, acting transport and asset manager. Councillor, there could be some form of scope reduction, but there would have to be some works done on Long Road to get that connectivity if the car park was to be functional. The proposed works on Long Road would still have to occur. The lighting is a safety issue if the car park is operational, so there are certain things that still need to occur if for that car park to become operational.
That's a great segue, Mr Mayor. I think we do need to have a talk about some of the items in the attachment. I'd like to suggest we go into confidential.
Before we do, I just have a question for the member, and this is an important one in the reflecting that this car park has an economic contribution to the whole region in terms of our tourism strategy, but it has a direct impact for Tamborine Mountain and for Division 1. My question to the member is her regard and her position in terms of that representation and their needs at this point in time, and her early thoughts around the completion, non-completion, priority of that project for the mountain, and or a varied outcome on that development.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to provide my early thoughts, but these are not based on any community consultation, given that this is a sudden development, so there's been no opportunity to engage with the community, the tourism operators or the residents of Division 1 or Tamborine Mountain overall, to find what their feelings are. I would imagine that the feeling would be they want the car park finished as quickly as possible, given the inconvenience that the works are causing with the trucks going in and out from Gallery Walk, which is an infrequent occurrence at the moment. I think we've nearly finished most of those major works that are involving heavy equipment and trucks. The broader community, however, if we're just looking at tourism from that perspective, the broader community, however, is, I would think, quite concerned about the fact, as raised by Councillor Moriarty, that if we end up moving this out to next year, we've still got to come up with the extra $1.6 million from somewhere, and if that is an impact on the rates that are charged or levied, I think that the rest of the wider community across the Scenic Rim is going to have something negative to say about that. My main concern is that this is but stage one of this project, and this is where we find ourselves. What confidence can we have that stage two will be done in a better manner and a more cost-effective manner and achieve the desired outcome within budget? I can't say that I have any confidence that that's going to happen. So to answer your question, Mayor, what would we be looking at doing? Well, yes, I think it needs to be finished, but in all conscience, I can't be putting my hand up to put another $1.6 million towards this. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any further questions? Councillor Moriarty.
Thank you, Chair. Just continuing on from Councillor Hayes' comments, probably a similar theme. It states in the report that a variety of reasons are given for this cost blowout on this project. Now, those are all, most of the reasons given are things that could reasonably have been foreshadowed and should have been certainly included in budgeting, I would imagine. However, it does state, and we hear this term quite often in council, lessons learned Now, I would contend that, you know, I've mentioned this in a briefing session previously, that council employs a number of experienced and highly qualified people and pay them very good money to avoid learning on the job, as it were, while projects are being undertaken. So yes, my question is, what lessons have we learned and what confidence can we have moving forward that we're not going to revisit in the next stages of this particular project or any future projects, given that, you know, the track record, if you look at the Bethesda Town Centre project, the extraordinary cost blowout to that, didn't seem we learned too much from that. So my question is, what lessons have we learned? What steps can we take to ensure this type of cost blowout doesn't occur in future capital works?
Thank you, Councillor. To be able to discuss the numbers of this variation that are attachment number one that is in confidential, I'll call from a motion from the floor to go into confidential.
I'm happy to move that if we can just have the wording up on this. There we go. Okay, I'll move the motion that. No, yeah, sorry, we didn't have an answer to that, to Councillor Moriarty's question.
I
Should
thought
we
it was
put
a
that back?
statement more than a
The
question.
question is, what lessons have we learned? So the question, I expect a response. Sorry.
Okay.
But what lessons have we learned and what steps can we take to make sure we don't go down this path again in the future?
Through the officer.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Moriarty. I'll ask the Director of Infrastructure just to provide a few comments in response. Thank you.
Thank you through you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor. We've been through quite a rigorous program of assessing both the entirety of the capital works program over the coming months, particularly since my peer and I started with Council. Reprioritisation, looking at the capacity to fund and the capacity to deliver. Councillors might recall there was a significant volume and value of carryovers from the previous year, which was a recurring theme. So that in itself is one element that we've worked through addressing. The second component is the initial costings and estimates for a project. The initial costings here were probably taken at a lower level, which is something that needs to be seriously looked at as part of setting the value and budget allocation for any capital works program of this scale or of significance. The third component that we are currently working through is the rigour in our project management systems. And so the frameworks that are implemented, how we designate significant projects, and what reporting and other links through to financial or other systems are in place for ongoing monitoring and visibility of tracking for major and significant capital works programs.
Thank you, Director, and it's good to know that some action at least is being taken to try and avoid such circumstances as this moving into the future. And just before we go into close, Chair, if I could just comment that councillors do have a fiduciary duty and we are accountable for the decisions made and the use of public money ultimately. So these types of decisions are very important, and council's responsibility to ensure that we don't keep going down the same path. Thank you.
Councillor, thank you. I apologise. When you set out previously, you said you had a comment to make, and wasn't put as a question as such. I will also answer your question, now recognised question, that the situation is not acceptable, and that I will be making a statement to the region in due course. Unfortunately, of actions that have already been taken. Unfortunately, I cannot make that statement at this point in time. The conditions of the development involve a state government grant, and some of those conditions around signing off with the state in terms of statements that will be that may be made. So until that, which hopefully will occur today, as I said, I will be making a statement in terms on behalf of the people for the benefit of the people regarding this matter in due course. I'll now call from the floor a motion to go into confidential.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hereby propose the motion that in accordance with Council standing orders for Council meetings, policy and provisions of Section 254J3G of the Local Government Regulation 2012, Council close the meeting to the public to discuss confidential matters in relation to item 5.1, Gallery Walk Project Update, Delivery Change and Budget Increase, as discussions will be held about budgeting in a commercial manner.
Seconded to the motion. Councillor Cryer. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. We will now go into closed session and look to return on the hour. Thank you. Thank you and welcome back. I now call upon a member to bring the meeting into open.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I propose the motion that the council resume in open session for the purpose of the resolutions.
Thank you. A seconder to the motion. Councillor Hay. Those in favour? Voted unanimously. Thank you. I now turn to Councillor McGuinness.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. There's been some slight word changes to what I introduced earlier, and I'll move that amended motion now that council endorse the one-off reallocation of, my glasses are getting, excuse my back, people, endorse the one-off reallocation of 1.6 million to accommodate a total budget amount of $6 million for the delivery of the Gallery Walk Stage 1 off-street car parking project funded from general revenue through Q2 budget reviews 2025-2026 with monthly reporting to council on project progresses.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Sanders, you're happy with that amendment as a seconder?
Yeah, as I was the seconder, I'm happy with that motion. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councillor McGuinness, would you like to talk to your motion?
Just briefly, Mayor, and as the public know, we were into confidential for quite some time, talking with staff on where this increases in or blowout in the budget came from, and yeah, it's not the greatest position to be in, but I think this motion that we've proposed here is the best way forward, and I thank all the staff for actually being open and honest with us on where it's come from, and I recommend the motion to my fellow councillors.
Thank you, Councillor. I'd actually like to call upon Councillor Hay from Division 1, given the magnitude of this matter, but also that the project is in Division 1, is a signature project for her division and her constituency. Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to say some words. This entire process has been quite disturbing, and I've been very upset about the project management deficiencies that have been highlighted as part of the internal reviews of how we've got to this position, and I will be calling on the director to give us an indication of the breakdown of what the ultimate $6 million spend, how that's comprised between state and council, and when I say council I mean ratepayers' funds. It's good that we are going to further review and have some learnings from what's happened with this particular project. As the Mayor has alluded, this is a signature project for Tamborine Mountain, and until the beginning of January it looked like it was going smoothly and we would have delivery by roughly the anticipated end date within budget, and that's not what's occurred, which has been very disappointing. I think we'll have some significant learnings going forward for the deliverability of other major projects that we have. I'm not in favour of reallocating $1.6 million from our capital budget, because there are the three possible ways that we could achieve that. The most likely one is to reallocate and reprioritise existing capital projects that are already in the existing budget, and that could result in us having to push some of the already committed projects out further into a subsequent financial year, if not further. So long as we don't end up having a rate increase to cover the $1.6 million additional costs, I'm afraid that I, as a divisional council, will just have to live with that. It would be good to see that when we put projects up, there is more consideration to the impacts on the ratepayers, and the affected people in the immediate area. So whilst the Gallery Walk car park is quite good for tourism regionally and particularly good for tourism on the mountain, I think it needs to be tempered with some attempt to recover costs, given that ratepayers from right across the region fund these things. To that end, at some point in the near future, I will be putting forward that we should have paid parking in that particular car park, given how much it has cost the ratepayers. So without any further ado, I'd like to ask the Director if he could speak to the cost breakdown between state and council, please.
CEO. Director.
Director of Corporate Community will provide some comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the question, Councillor Hay. What I can confirm is that Council has received $2.1 million from the state government's 2024 to 2027 South East Queensland Community Stimulus Program. The balance of that $6 million for the project of $3.9 million will be funded by council revenue at this stage. The value of that to be confirmed through council's revised budget for the half year to December 31, 2025, which will be discussed at council's meeting further in the ordinary meeting in February later this month. So the source of funding is there, but clearly there's a state government contribution to this project, the balance to be funded by council revenue. Hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Councillor Hay. And your comments are well noted, with particular regard to constituents' rates. Is there anyone wishing to talk against the motion? Do you have anything further to add to your motion, Councillor McInnes?
No, thanks, Mayor.
I then put it to the members. Those in favour? The motion's been carried unanimously. Thank you. And that now draws the special meeting for the 25th of February 2026 to a close. Thank you.